Hello and welcome to the CHGO Fire Podcast, presented by Coors Light, the official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Chicago, choose chill. Go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer to get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I'm your host, Alex Campbell, and we welcome back for another round of Fire Chat, Joe Chatz of On Tap Sportsnet. Joe, thanks for coming in. I feel like we've got you on a nice, alternating podcast schedule now of Chicago soccer.
Can't complain. At least one of these teams is winning. That's be happy about it.
Sadly, it is not the team we are going to talk about today. The Red Stars did win again. Back-to-back wins for them on the trot. Although it's probably going to be a tough next month. Sans Mallory Swanson, but, you can watch her tear it up for the U.S. Women's National Team. Meanwhile, we do have to talk about the team that isn't winning much at the moment. We've got 4 games, Joe, since our last show to get through. 3 of them were losses. The one that wasn't a loss was weird, too. Let's dive right into it, though, because we got a lot to get through. Orlando City 4, Chicago Fire 2. Surely, after hanging 4 goals on that hapless Toronto team, that would give the Fire momentum into their next match, right? No, of course not. Although it was less embarrassing than last time, the Fire, for the second time in a row against Orlando, concede almost immediately, although instead of basically scrambling the ball into their own net, it was Facu Torres with an absolute banger. His first of what would be 2 of those in this game. I think the thought here, Joe, is not just that it was a slow start, but lots of talk about the wingbacks, the defenders, the defense in general. Jonathan Dean got put in a spin cycle on this goal, and it was just a sign of how this game was going to go.
Yeah, Facu Torres owns the Fire at this point. He's scored in 4 straight games against Chicago. It's really, one of those guys who is probably too good for MLS and just kind of where his career is at and all that. But the Fire could not have started off worse. It's hot in Orlando. It's kind of the worst place in the summer to start off slow because that mental edge you need there is so extreme. And it went from bad to worse. I had the flu that night, and somehow watching this game was worse. And that's not a joke. 3 goals in 30 minutes conceded on the road when you had just built some momentum. It was really just a kick in the crotch if you're watching that game.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where, yes, Orlando is a terrible place to play. It's basically unanimously voted every year by the MLS players as their least favorite away destination because of that humidity. Even games like this played at night, it doesn't seem to matter much. Joe, you mentioned it was 3-0 by the 30th minute. Goal in the 20th is a Luis Muriel penalty kick. Personal foul, horse collar tackle, number 27, defense, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down. Alan Aragoni, what on earth are you doing there? Ardo Suke is standing and watching. Very bad. 29th minute, Angulo, 3-0. The Fire defenders stand around as Orlando play through them. Everyone is ball watching as Duncan McGuire. This is a ridiculous thing that McGuire tries here. It doesn't work. He tries to backheel this, and no one sees it coming. It hits Chris Brady, falls to Angulo. Yeah, again, it's hot and humid, but in less than 30 minutes, the Fire, Joe, had given up.
They'd given up, and again, it's off with 2 wins, 2 great wins, and you know it's going to be a tough game, and it's already a team you've competed against. It's a team you need to do well against in conference, and it was just so lackadaisical. The Fire did manage 4 shots on goal in the first half, which is a lot for them, but it wasn't even close to good enough. They generated, over a goal of expected goals, but it doesn't matter at this point. We've talked about this enough with this team. Who gives a crap about the expected goals? And it's just... it was so frustrating to watch because it just killed any momentum that was built.
So this game does nothing for a while, and then the Fire do find some life in the second half, and it's going to be there's going to be a theme throughout these 4 games. There's a lot of bad, but there are 2 guys in particular whose names we're going to mention a lot because they've been good. Marin Haile Selassie converts the PK in the 53rd minute. He drew it by drawing a handball. Briefly, Joe, interesting that in the absence of Shaqiri, Haile Selassie is the team's designated penalty taker. I don't really have any real analysis of that other than it's interesting that he's the guy who's ended up with that job.
And remember, it was Shihos for a minute with the Fire a couple years ago, so clearly there has been a almost long-term lack in that non-Shaqiri option, I guess because he is, well, Euros withstanding, pretty sure from the spot.
It's been his best thing in a Fire uniform.
Easily.
He said this himself. I believe this was like early this year when we asked him about it post-game. He said, I never miss. He wasn't kidding. He does not miss from the spot. He basically converts every penalty he takes. That included against England the other day. Not that it mattered. Then just when you think the Fire have some hope, here's that aforementioned second Facu Torres banger, 4-1, great strike. Fire got to closed on the ball. This has been an issue all season. Kellen Acosta, I'm looking at you. And then the other guy who we're going to say lots of good things about in this episode, Hugo Kuipers, 69th minute goal, keeps up the good form. Orlando's center backs just hand him the ball here. It's kind of a nothing cross. Orlando's center backs literally run into each other. Ball falls for Kuipers. He hits it home. The Fire don't get many more looks. Chris Brady almost gives up a late goal by going walkabout. We're going to talk about that more later, unfortunately. Fire lose 4-2. They just didn't show up to play. But, Joe, they had the chance to make that game a one-off. It's the second back-to-back long road trip. It's Orlando. It's far. It's hot. It's humid. Whatever. Seattle Sounders 2, Chicago Fire 1. Just a brutal trifecta of road games in terms of the frequent flyer miles. Toronto, Orlando, Seattle. Seattle the third one. Notable changes here. Rafa Chios comes back in after getting his green card. He replaces Mauricio Pineda. And Kellen Acosta goes to the bench for Gaston Jimenez. Fire do respond. They start this game well. They are, without question, the better team for the first half hour of this game, and they are rewarded by a Marin Haile Selassie goal in the 30th minute. It's a great ball into his feet by Gaston Jimenez, who I think has been maybe a beneficiary, kind of a quiet beneficiary when he's on the field of the back three that the Fire have been playing in recent times. Marin playing as a striker, something that we weren't really sure how that was going to go. Again, Barlow and Koutsias were both, if you'll take your mind back a month or two, they were both given opportunities to be Hugo's partner. That went so badly that neither one of them made it more than 2 games in the role. And Marin has, even though in some games you could say he's been more of a winger, some games he's been more of a 10, he was playing as a striker in this game. And I think you've got to credit him with, I guess, his selflessness and his adaptability and, the form he's found in a kind of unfamiliar position.
That's all he's done since he's come to Chicago. He's been put in any role, and he just goes with it. He's not been put in a position where he can say no, and especially now where it's becoming more of an attacking role, where when he first got here, they were throwing him in at wing back. They were trying to make him more of a defensive player when he's like, no, I'm an attacking winger, and he won the Golden Boot last year, which was a whole different issue with only 6 goals. But
he's already matched that this season.
But he's shown how opportunistic he is and that he positions himself well. And when you have someone like Hugo Kuipers who runs as much as he does, who is not going to stick near the penalty spot, he will stray away towards the outside of the penalty area. You need someone like Marin Haile Selassie who can bring a little bit more finesse as well in that attacking spot. And he's just willing to get himself in the right spot. And that's all the Fire have needed from a second striker. They've just never really had that first striker to provide those opportunities.
Right. So, again, it's the Fire dominating, getting a goal, taking a 1-0 lead into the half on the road. Can they hold that lead? No, they can't. They come out in the second half. All the air is out of the balloon. This really comes home in the 56th minute. Goal Seattle. Albert Rusnak from the penalty spot. Jonathan Dean. We got our second horse collar penalty on the Fire in as many games. I don't know what is going on here, how this keeps happening. He pulls Rothrock's collar, who'd been on the field for all of 8 minutes, as Rothrock was sliding in, trying to get it to a cross from Jordan Morris that I don't think he was going to get to anyway. So this was not only a horse collar, it was a stupid horse collar. So I don't know what's up with that. And maybe this is a good time, Joe, to just touch on the fact that as versatile as someone like Jonathan Dean has been, and Arnaud Souquet has looked okay in that right-handed center back spot, Alan Aragoni's been all over the place. We're getting to the point we saw in the Seattle game where finally it felt like the lack of fullback / wingback depth was really starting to catch up with the Fire.
100%. In the lack of options, you don't have a left-footed option at this point that's healthy. You have Lamont Rochester on CF2, but he's not even healthy right now. So it's really coming to a head. And it's been discussed all season. Alan Aragone's probably going to hit a plateau at some point. He's been playing all year, was playing with Lugano. So this is going to be more football than he's ever played soccer, whatever we're going to call it. But it's getting to a point where there's Chris Mueller playing right wing back the last few games. They know there's an issue. They've been rotating every possible option, but
there just aren't that many people.
No,
it doesn't really
tough.
feel like it. It is rotation, but it doesn't feel like rotation when everybody's playing so many minutes. We'll come on to this more later, but you do really feel that outside of the high-level needs this team has at the top of the roster, they kind of just need anybody who's played left back before to come in and help. It would be very silly. Hey, Chelsea, can you loan Caleb Wiley to Chicago?
Strasbourg?
No, he's going to Strasbourg instead. No, the Fire could just really use anybody to eat up some minutes at that left side. They should not rush Andrew Grootman back by any means, but if he is able to return and stay healthy this time, what a boon that would be. 65th minute, it looks like Seattle has another PK as Rafa Chios is initially whistled for a handball. That was not a good call. This VAR review did not take very long. It's overturned and stays 1-1. And then we hit the silly portion of the Seattle game. And this wasn't even the silliest game, Joe, of this window.
Not even close.
Yeah. So the camera breaks at the top because there's a literal power outage in the stadium. So before we get to the soccer and viewing implications of this, this game should have been stopped.
Yes, 100%.
The power went out in a significant portion of Lumen Field. The lights flickered. The lighting was worse. All the players, when it first happened, just kind of stopped, like, we're going to stop playing, right? So there's an administrative failure here. I don't know if it's the league. I don't know if it's the stadium. I don't know if this is the fourth official's job. It was somebody's job to say this game needs to be stopped. It wasn't. Instead, we got to look at the fourth official's backside for a significant chunk of the rest of the game. For those of you who didn't see it, literally the only camera we had is if you ever see the guy sitting in the swivel chair with the camera right behind the fourth official, that was all we had for like the rest of this game. There was no scoreboard, no score bug, no nothing. MLS After Dark vibes. We don't know how much time is left in this game. Eventually, in the 90th plus something, Seattle ends up getting a winner because a third PK is called in the game. This is the second one that's going to stick. A really clumsy challenge by Mauricio Pineda on Jordan Morris. Even though the angle we had to the play, Joe, was terrible, this was an obvious PK even from the bad angle. Pineda just goes to the back of him. It's a clear foul. Albert Rusnak steps up. He goes the exact same direction. He scores again. Joe, are we blaming the fact that Chris Brady cannot seemingly get to his posts on Chris Brady, or the fact that turf in Seattle still sucks?
Yes. The turf in Seattle is bad, but if there's one place that Chris Brady certainly needs to improve, it's PKs. Yeah, the numbers are there. That's not even about like the mental side of things. Like Chris goes the right way on both of these penalties. It's that his right hand doesn't get anywhere near, even if he's late and was never going to catch up to these kicks anyway. When his body hits the ground, if you look where his right fingertips are, they are not as close to the post as they need to be. So Seattle just dominates the second half. They probably deserve the win, but through these first two games, Joe, the story absolutely is the Fire cannot get through a full 90 minutes of competitive soccer. This has been a common through line, but I think these two games might have been the most definitive examples we've seen all season. If I have to hear another Apple broadcaster say a tale of two halves to describe a Fire game, I'm going to smack somebody because cliches. But it's the reality. Cliches are right. Yeah, it's such a reality, and the Seattle game especially. It's just don't be your own worst enemy, and it's been the Chicago Fire theme for years. It's why they got rid of Miguel Navarro at left back, who we honestly kind of use right now at a cheaper salary than the other options. Well, started all of Venezuela's games at the Copa. Oh my God, he of course had to be involved. It was great, the red card or the handball at the end, but these games just weren't complete. There were mistakes all over, and it just needed to be better at every single level from the Fire, and they blew it. So the Fire finish out that away trip. It doesn't finish well. Then they were returning home. What would they have in store? Well, they'd give us no shortage of things to talk about, and we'll get to that game right after a quick word from our sponsors. CHGO Fire is, of course, presented
by Coors Light. Work, social media, all the choices and stresses life might throw your way. We can get stressed out. We can get worked up in so many different ways. But Coors Light celebrates the idea that sometimes you just need to chill, whether that's after a tough loss, if it's been a long day, week, or month at work, if you get caught in the rain, if your sports teams just can't win a darn game, whatever it is, choose chill. And when you choose chill, that is the perfect time to reach for an ice-cold Coors Light. We love Coors Light around here at CHGO. It is always there when we choose that chill attitude. And when the mountains on the cans and bottles of Coors Light turn blue, it's telling you that it is cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment that is crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. So make the most out of the times you choose to chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer. That's CoorsLight.com/CHGOSOCCER. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. CHGO Fire is also brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the rest of this summer. It's only getting hotter out there, folks. Only getting sunnier. And you got to get quality shades that are built to last from our friends at Shady Rays, where they have you covered with premium polarized shades that will not break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent company with a world-class product, and over 300,000 people have rated them 5 stars. And I got to give a shout-out to Shady Rays because this week I took advantage of their lost or broken replacement guarantee on a pair of shades I bought 2 years ago. They broke the other day. I went on to the Shady Rays website. I put in my email, and I was able to pull up that 2 years ago purchase, and I got a brand new pair of Shady Rays polarized sunglasses for just $16 as a replacement. Again, 2 years ago was super easy, and I also got a bonus offer on an anniversary pair of Shady Rays celebrating their birthday. Cannot speak highly enough of that experience. If you don't love your shades, you can also exchange them for a new pair and return worry-free within 30 days. No risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for CHGO listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to ShadyRays.com and use code CHGO for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades, rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Thank you to Coors Light, and thank you to Shady Rays. Back to the soccer and back home, Joe Chatz, for the Fire last Wednesday, where they took on the Philadelphia Union, a Union team that was jet-lagged, tired, injured, all sorts of things. What in the hell was this 90 minutes of soccer?
It was chaos. It was great. The Fire wanted to lose this game. Oh, boy, did they try to lose this game. Everything about it being down 2-1 at halftime, just everything until the 81st minute. They wanted to blow it, but they didn't.
Well, as we'll come to talk about, Philly had about 80 minutes of soccer in them as a squad. You could literally see the fuel light go on. Like, there should have literally on the Apple broadcast, under the Philly, like, the PHI and then how many goals they have, there should have been, like, a check engine light or, like, a low fuel warning that just popped on because that's what it looked like.
The flickering red.
Anyway, this game started weird by everybody being like, hey, what's wrong with the field? The Rolling Stones had been there 4 days before, and the field still looked like a mess, although it's not the worst field the Fire would play on this week. More on that in a few minutes. Wyatt Omsberg got his first start of the year. Yes, that's a real thing. Wyatt Omsberg had not started a soccer game until
Salute
July.
the sheriff, sir. We got to salute the sheriff. Sheriff Omsberg.
Shout out to Sheriff Wyatt. Gaston Jimenez goes to the bench. I guess, again, as I said, Philly were ragged. Daniel Gazdag was starting this game despite definitely still being jet-lagged from his flight back from the Euros. And the Fire, once again, on the 30th minute mark, clockwork, second game in a row, Marin Haile Selassie, he scores to make it 1-0. Fourth straight game with a goal for him as he becomes the second Fire player, Kuipers, to accomplish that in a number of weeks. This is just a good counterattack. Alan Aragoni gets forward into lots of space, puts a cross into a dangerous area, it pinballs around, Haile Selassie chips it in. And so the mood here, Joe, was good. Again, Marin scores again. Okay, this Philly team looked ragged. The Fire got a couple more chances in the next 5 minutes. Gutierrez misses one in the 34th. Haile Selassie should have probably scored a second in the 35th. Yep. It looked like, okay, the Fire are back home, and they are just beating up on a tired and overmatched opponent.
That's what it seemed like. And then they're not even got in their own way. They just got a lucky goal. Philadelphia got a lucky goal in the 38th minute. Just Flock hits it off of Chris Donovan, who has not been good all year. And he gets a lucky goal. But the problem is the Fire seemed to drop their heads after they conceded what really was a fluke.
I also got to say, I believe, I'll just make a brief note of this. I believe Leon Flock got called Leon Flacco at one point in the sequence following this goal, but that's...
I don't even want to start with that.
No, we're not going to go. We're not going to go there.
Nope,
Just that one was funny.
Nope.
But this is a lesson. Finish your chances.
Yep.
45th plus 7, yes. Goal, Philly, 2-1, of course. Again, this goal, and the reason it was in the 7th minute of stoppage time is because there was a lot of VAR involved in this one. I mentioned Chris Brady's walkabout habit earlier. He gets to the edge of the box, grabs the ball, and we've seen this before, Joe. He realizes he's about to carry the ball out of the area, so he simply lets go of it. In hindsight, he should have just taken the yellow card because he got one here anyway. After dropping the ball, it's picked up by Nathan Harriel. Brady then tackles Nathan Harriel, very Soldier Field appropriate. VAR review, PK, Daniel Gazdag scores, and setting aside all the other nonsense, this is an issue for Chris Brady. We have seen this a couple times this season where he gets to the edge of the area, realizes he's out of room, can't put on the brakes fast enough. Maybe this is just like a 20-year-old who's 6'4" and doesn't have exactly great body coordination still, but his presence around the edge of his penalty area continues to be worrying.
It's a matter, I think, when I've looked back at some of those mistakes, I think it always comes when they're down a goal or two and the Fire, again, like this opportunity, you just tied the game, you'd made a mistake, and it seems to be when Brady's pressing a little too hard. He seems to be trying to do a little bit too much, maybe not trusting his back line as much just because after a mistake, those things happen. But that, especially when you're going against Harriel, where Brady understands that guy's level, having trained with him pre-Olympics and everything. There's the relationship there. I imagine after conceding that first goal, there was clearly a sense of urgency. And then after one of the longest VAR reviews for pretty normal standard PK that we all thought was going to be given, 2-1 at halftime felt like a very Fire result at that point.
So it's 2-1 at the half, and then you just got to laugh at the goal that goes in the 49th minute. Jack McGlynn, just a banger.
Yep.
If you're listening or watching this live, not unlike the goal Lamine Yamal just scored for Spain about 15 minutes ago. The Lamine Yamal one, slightly more important being in a Euro semifinal. But anyway, once again, the Fire defenders are just watching. It's Acosta again, and Aragoni on this occasion. Hits both posts, goes in. Joe, were there halftime adjustments? Well, I'm not sure if there were, because either way, now it's 3-1.
Chris Mueller came on for Johnny Dean.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that actually. Nice segue. Chris Mueller did come on in that wingback-ish position. Kind of, seemed to make sense at the time. Yeah. Mueller looks like he's got a goal in the 53rd. Haile Selassie is offside. Quick side note. This ref was doing just his second MLS game ever. His first MLS game since they introduced the on-field, crowd mic NFL style thing. This ref really was into the live crowd mic.
I was the pool reporter, and I was not happy with anything about that game. Both sides. We'll talk about it after we get through the game. Yeah, there was a lot. Mr. Abdu and Ndiaye. He then had the Red Stars game this weekend. So
turned
it
on the
great.
Red Stars game a few days later. It was like, hey, wait a minute, I know that guy.
Put me in a great mood when I saw that he was the ref. I'm like, oh no.
There was nothing actually that weird though about that Red Stars game. Thankfully for Joe and everybody else.
Thank you, Mal Swanson.
Yes, shout out to Mal. Anyway, so the check engine light goes on in the 80th. Yep. And this is where you could have just played yakety sax under the rest of this game because it was obnoxious. 82nd minute, Ugo Kuiper's goal. The Fire scored on a set piece.
Yeah, right? A great cross from Martin Haile Selassie to the far post. Chris Mueller, of all people, with a very athletic play to just keep it in bounds near the end line with a header with power to go about 8 to 10 yards to Kuipers. Easy header for Kuipers, exactly what you need him to do. And yeah, like you said it, Ryan needs special. We've criticized him. Nailed that play.
Yep, got that one right. 89th minute, Gaston Jimenez scores a volley. Just beautiful. Yep. Rafa Chios wins a knockdown header. Again, Gaston more of a passer to create chances than a finish chances kind of guy, but that was a sweet strike. Philly are just standing around. They are dead on their feet. They are exhausted. It's 3-3, and at this point, anything. You really felt like anything could happen after this.
This was a point, and I was speaking to a guy from Philly. I have no recollection of what this guy's name was. I didn't introduce myself, and that's on me. But at 3-1, I was like, oh, at least you saw a good game. And obviously things changed. I didn't get to apologize post-match, so this is me overcompensating in hindsight. But you just think after the Montreal result earlier in the year, oh, my God. And when you see Philly, you watch Philly, you're just thinking, oh, yeah, they have some of these fire characteristics as well of choking some of these games late. And there was a belief that has not been really seen at Soldier Field much this year.
No, you saw like the check engine light idea. You saw a light go on with the fire. They're like, oh, this team's dead. Like they've got nothing left. We can get something here. It only took 2 more minutes for the winner to come. 90th plus 1. Comeback is somehow complete. Ugo Kuipers gets a second goal in 10 minutes. The Philly defenders are just standing around. They're out of gas. Kuipers basically got a tap in on the line. On a cross from Marinahali Selassie that if either Jakob Glesnes or Semla, the Philly backup keeper, if either
no, it was, I think it was Andrew Rick that game. Was it?
Semna, Semmle, however you...
Oh, my mistake.
Yeah. Anyway, either one of them takes one step and this goal doesn't happen. Instead, Kuipers is standing like 5 feet from the keeper.
And they gave him enough time to allow the ball to drop to his feet. It was a great finish, really composed, like allowing that ball to drop kind of a half volley without the power behind it. Really nice from Kuipers, but the fact that he even had the time to get that shot off is bananas.
Yeah, all right. We've only got a few minutes before we got to take another break here, but I think just in the interest of time, Joe, we're going to motor through this next game in 3 minutes.
Let's do it.
San Jose 1, Chicago 0. I said, like, what the hell was that Philly game, but that was in a positive sense. This is a what the hell in a derogatory sense. Fire played their 3rd game in just over a week. Basically didn't rotate the team at all except for Mueller. San Jose are the worst team in MLS. They looked like it. The Fire played down to their level. The field was more of a joke than either team. And yet the Fire still, Joe, decided they would try to build up slowly through this field against this team rather than the obvious thing to do, which would have been just hit balls long into the box. Don't worry about actual passing. San Jose's a train wreck. Let them make mistakes and hand you chances. And instead, the Fire kept trying to just walk the ball up the field.
Yeah, no Frank Klopas for this match because he was suspended after getting a late red card. Shout out Adu and Daye. But he...
Just adding to the nonsense of the Philly stoppage time.
Frank did say it was his fault, but, these things happen. Either way, it was so frustrating. The Fire played fine in the first half, but the only number I care about having watched this game, 1 shot on target. One. And I don't care how close they came in the end. I don't care how the opportunities for Hugo Kuipers and Tom Barlow came. You don't hit the target consistently, you're not going to win. And
hitting the crossbar does not count as hitting the target. Apologies to Tom Barlow, who was offside anyway.
Yeah.
San Jose got their goal in the 49th minute because Chris Mueller was being asked to play some defense, and he just fell asleep. That's the risk you're taking by having him in that position. So you lose to the worst team in the league. It's their first clean sheet in MLS since last October. They had not shut out anybody this year. It is just their 4th win, San Jose, of the season. It is just their 6th result of the season. They've only drawn 2 games all year. And I think you just got to say this. When you lose to the worst team in the league, it's kind of like the idea of a transitive World Cup champion. Like there's people online who will track like, okay, Argentina loses to that, loses to a team. That team is now technically the world champions until they lose to somebody else. It works the same way. You just lost to unquestionably the worst team in MLS. Congrats, Fire, for at least this week until somebody else plays games. You are now the worst team in MLS.
Losing to a team that hadn't won since May 11th and including a USL loss to Sacramento in the Open Cup is one of the teams that got their senior team in the Open Cup. Not good. Not good at all.
Yeah, no, it's all real bad. After the break, we'll talk about the upcoming schedule because it is a doozy. But, Joe, just all the hope that we had a few weeks ago. The Fire had, that string of positive results. It looked like, things weren't great, but it looked like some structure had been found. The floor had been set a little higher than before. And instead, the Fire lose 3 out of their last 4 games, including again to the worst team in the entire league. And now it just feels like, hey, at least the Fire keep it interesting. They find new ways to impress us in all the wrong sorts of ways. We're going to take one more break here as we hear from everybody who makes this show possible here at CHGO. CHGO Fire is brought to you by Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping and a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase from their wide array of high-quality products. At Sunnyside, they've got everything you need to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is truly a one-stop shop with their expertly curated menu, over 100 strains to choose from, and easy online ordering in-store pickup, making it as easy a customer experience as it possibly can be. Sunnyside is Illinois' favorite dispensary. Locations here in the city, of course, Wrigleyville, River North. They're also out in the suburbs and throughout the rest of Illinois. If you're starting out, Sunnyside has expert guidance and brands that they know you'll love, like Good News and Mindy's, and their staff are super helpful in helping you sort through that experience. Or if you're a pro, they've got you covered with, as I mentioned, over 100 strains on the menu, new products added weekly. Again, it's so easy to order online, and the help is always there in store or well. Here for the summer is Good News Tea Time Disposable Vape, bringing classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course, because all we need is a little help staying loose out there. And my golf game's been awful lately. If I had been a little looser, maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. So head to sunnyside.shop. That is sunnyside.shop, and use code HICHGO at checkout for 35% off favorite brands like Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day. Only for 21 and older or Illinois medical card holders. CHGO Fire also brought to you by Ray Chevrolet. For your new Chevy, make Ray Chevrolet your first overall draft pick. Visit our partners there this June to shop their summer sales event going on all month long now into July as well at Ray Chevy on Route 12 in Fox Lake and at raychevrolet.com. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Plus, you can find the perfect tailgate vehicle. Right now, get $12,000 off MSRP on a new 2024 Chevrolet Silverado, or lease a new 2024 Chevy Trax for only $179 a month for 24 months. Or cruise into summer your own way and shop over 125 of their vehicles priced under $20,000. If you've heard of Ray Chevrolet, then you've also heard of Ray's Price Promise. They're guaranteed to make your next vehicle more affordable than ever with no price changing, no add-ons, no hidden fees ever. That means the incredible prices we're talking about now, you can expect to see at the very same time when you go in and shop Ray Chevy in-store or online. So shop the summer sales event by going to Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive. All right, Joe, before we get out of here today, let's take a look at that upcoming Fire schedule between now and the League's Cup. And buddy, these three games, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see them there. This coming Saturday against NYCFC, they are currently 5th in the East. Then only a few days later on Wednesday, more midweek MLS, they go to first place, FC Cincinnati. And 3 days after that, they go down to South Florida to take on second place Inter Miami. This is the point where in the show where we mentioned that Argentina are playing Canada in the Copa America semifinals this evening. They're probably not going to lose that game, but if they do, you know who could be back for that game. The Copa America final is on Sunday, July 14th. You can do the math. So again, that's followed by Leagues Cup, which offers kind of a reprieve, a change of scenery, a reset button, a chance to relax maybe a bit. But man, you look at the Fire, again, the Fire losing to the Earthquakes is bad regardless. It only looks worse when you do the gulp that comes from looking at these next three games, because it's hard to see the Fire getting more than, maybe you would think the odds would see them be able to get a draw against NYC at home this Saturday, but then at Cincy, at Miami, this could be real unfun.
At Cincy, I'll be there. Not excited. Gonna be interesting.
Stadium's nice though. It's a nice, in the abstract, a game at that stadium is a nice soccer viewing experience. Adding the Fire component might make that less nice.
It's Ohio. You take what you can get. But it's going to be tough. The New York game, you need to play well. You need a point at home. Next two, if I had to guess, you're probably going to lose to Cincinnati, and then you need something against Miami on the road, potentially a shorthanded Miami team.
Yeah, we don't know at all what that Miami team's going to look like. Suarez and Messi probably not back for that game. Benjamin Kremoski not going to be in for that game. He's off with the U.S. Olympic team.
Yep.
Busquets has been a combination of suspended and hurt lately, which
great red card,
which has been weird. So yeah, again, maybe that game's there for the taking, but again, you have to apply the Florida tax of hot, humid summer, awful, yada yada yada. So yeah,
no South Beach flu, hopefully too. That's a thing if pro athletes got to be concerned about it.
I mentioned Benjamin Kremoski is going to Paris with the United States. Chris Brady is not. Full disclosure, we don't have full clarity on this situation at the moment. We're going to get that tomorrow when Chris Brady is the player being made available. I'm sure not coincidentally for this week's Fire media availability. There's basically two options here. Either Chris Brady wasn't called at all, and Marko Mitrovic preferred John Pulskamp from SKC, who has only played 3 MLS games this season. That strikes me as unlikely, especially given Chris's past involvement with the team. Yep. The much more likely explanation, I think you'd agree, Joe, is that Chris Brady was called to be an alternate and likely not play, and turned it down to stay with the Fire instead. But again, we'll get clarity on this tomorrow when we're able to speak to the man himself.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate at this point. I know he was disappointed. He really did make an effort for it, wanted to do it, really, especially after how tough the results have been the last year and a half since he's been starting. He was looking forward to just trying to get some wins with the group and all that. So I can't wait for the clarity, because I understand why you would bring Pulskamp. Even, let's say, Brady was released. There is an argument for Pulskamp if you're Marco, just because maybe he's used to that third role, or maybe he's better at PKs.
Yeah, he's
that
not a starter for his club. Like, that's the thing, he's used to being the guy at practice who the starters are taking shots at. That is John Pulskamp's day-to-day job. And that's the job the alternate keeper is going to have. The keepers who are on the roster are the ones we thought were going to be there. Yeah. Gaga Slonina does get released, which is an interesting thing given that it's expected he, like Caleb Wiley, which MLS connection, but there's currently no TV deal for Ligue 1 in France, so we don't know how we can watch them yet, but Gaga probably also headed to Strasbourg on loan this upcoming season. Chelsea, and the national team must have all figured something out. Likewise, Caleb Wiley is also in that group, so I'm sure this was kind of a group discussion of sorts. So Gaga and Schulte are there. I'd imagine Gaga is going to be the starter, but Schulte's been solid for Columbus for the last year and a half, so no reason to be surprised if he's there. The other weird call here, Diego Luna's not on this roster, which we don't know what that's about, but Chris Brady is not the only or the weirdest omission. Certainly, this is also worth noting that Frank Klopas had previously made it very clear that the club was not going to stand in the way of any call-ups, so I would be absolutely shocked, I think everybody would be, if we learned that Brady had been called and the Fire were the ones who blocked it. Klopas had been quite clear about that was never going to happen. Brian Gutierrez, as we expected, is also not on this roster. Again, Diego Luna isn't there either, so no surprise Gutierrez is there. There have been some quibbles with the Kremoski inclusion. Is this he's a dual nat, and this is a good way to try to help him pick us, given that this is not technically a senior tournament. Thus, appearances at this tournament are not national team cap ties. Maybe. Seems like a weird thing to do, though, on an 18-player roster. Gaga Slonina, though, not the only former Fire player going to Paris. Georgi Mihailovic makes it as an overage player. He's been quite good for Colorado, so I don't know if positionally Georgie is the player who makes the most sense to be that third overage guy to go with the center backs, but he's certainly played well enough to be in that slot. Again, he's not a guy who's in the A-team picture for the national team. He's been very good in MLS. Again, it's a nice reward for him. Happy for Georgie. But it begs the question of, could they not get a center forward?
Could they not get a center forward, or was he so committed to the role that Marco proposed to him and had that kind of buy-in? Because when you're playing on a position, if you're willing to buy into that, it's like what we see with the U.S. men's basketball team, when LeBron has to be the center at times when he was younger and wanted to be a small forward. Sometimes in these competitions, you got to play a different role. We see it with national teams and really anything. And I can see that Georgi Mihailovic saw a role. Scoring goals at the Olympics sounds kind of fun in Paris or wherever they're going to be playing. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was as simple as, let me try this role, and maybe I can increase my salary down the line if I can prove that I'm a goal-scoring threat.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's been a fun year for Colorado. It also feels like it's all gravy for the Rapids. Like, they were not supposed to be, they were not expected to be anywhere near this good. And now they've got Moises Bombito, the center back, who now is like getting
Mr.
large
Canada.
transfer offers from Europe. A guy that even a lot of MLS heads at the beginning of 2024 had never heard of. And now he's a locked-in starter for the Rapids. He's going to play against Messi tonight.
Yep.
And is like been really, really good for Colorado. It's weird. Like, it's an awesome story, but yeah, Colorado's been fun. Georgie, though, would be good to see the Lamont native go out there and do some things on the international stage.
I haven't been to Lamont in a minute. I gotta get an excuse to
That's
go out
kind of
there.
my neck of the woods.
All right.
It's just, so shout out to the south and southwest suburbs. Georgie, do us proud. And then, Joe, the last thing we got to talk about today. I mentioned earlier that Xherdan Shaqiri scored his penalty for Switzerland, as you'd expect him to do. It was probably the best penalty any Swiss player took. Certainly better than Manuel Akanji's penalty, for what that's worth. Yikes. So Switzerland are out of the Euros, which means that Xherdan Shaqiri is now free to do, well, something else. Also, he scored a banger in the Euros because, of course, he did. That's just what he does. It's his sixth straight, I believe, major tournament for Switzerland that he's played in, the fourth straight that he has scored in. It's, again, all jokes apply. If you only watch international soccer, you would assume Xherdan Shaqiri is one of the greatest players of all time because when he puts on that Switzerland shirt, he's just magical. There were lots of vague statements from the Fire over the last couple months, most of them from Frank Klopas, saying things along the lines of, we're working on it. We got to, club and player, got to figure out what the best solution is. Shaqiri has gone public saying, basically, yeah, my contract is up at the end of the year, and I'm going to leave after that, but also kind of saying, somebody come get me for the next 6 months. It's an odd situation, Joe, because the thing hanging over all of this is Xherdan Shaqiri is still owed roughly $4 million.
Yes, he is, and that is not a small sum in professional soccer. I realize we can be a bit jaded in American sports with the salaries being what they are. That is a massive salary for any league, especially if it's not a top 5 league in Europe.
Yeah, honestly, like the best example of why players' unions in the big American sports leagues are important is when you compare like American sports salaries to soccer, because there's so much money being generated in the high levels of soccer. Who knows where so much of it is going? Because, I mean, there is no collective bargaining. The players are all negotiating individually. So, like, you'd hear, for example, the British media would, anytime they heard of players making £300,000 a week, they'd all go insane. And that is a ton of money. That's $15 million a year, which is, again, I'm not sneezing at $15 million a year at all. But when you compare that to American sports, where people are now regularly at the top and making 30 plus, I mean, Jason Tatum just signed a contract for $61 million a year.
Look at what Chris Mueller's salary was with Hibernian, and they call him the worst signing they've ever had. If that was the worst signing your team has had in American sports based on that salary, that would be the best team in American sports. But because the salary structures are so different, he is deemed as such just because you can get away with paying certain people zilch.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously insane contracts in soccer. The new Mbappe Real Madrid deal in particular is going to be ridiculous because they didn't have to pay a transfer fee for him, which then gives you and your agent leverage to be like, hey, since you got me for free, we expect more salary because we know you're good for it. So things of that nature. I mean, Leo Messi making $20 million in MLS is in MLS in American sports. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but like Messi making $20 million, I mean, he would be like, for example, in the Premier League, the richest league in the world. That salary would put him, I believe, in like the top 15 to 20 players in the Premier League. Again, guys don't get paid like this globally. So when, you hear talks of, could Shaqiri go to Turkey? Could Shaqiri go to Greece? Could Shaqiri go to somewhere in Switzerland? You got to find somebody to take that money, because otherwise you'd have to use a buyout, which we still haven't heard confirmation on if MLS teams are getting a second one this year. And even if they are, that's probably Lugano. And does Shaqiri want to still be in the Georg Heights universe? Sure doesn't sound like he does.
No, it does
and
not.
So he could sit on his butt for 6 months and do nothing. But I think before we get out of here, Joe, we should establish, and I think you and I agree on this, if you're the Fire, you cannot bring him back.
No, why would you? He left early to go play in friendlies before the Euros while your team was struggling immensely, and he's the captain. No, you simply can't do that. I don't know how you go back into the locker room after that. I don't know how you can spin a leadership discussion about it. I don't know how you can go in and say that some of these things matter. He played against like Estonia in a friendly. When your team's that bad and struggling to score goals, and this is your thing, and if there's one thing Shaqiri can do, he can score when there's a penalty kick. So that's one of the things that can guarantee you goals. And I really don't understand how he would be received in a positive light if he did return, just because it would be professionalism, just trying to see out getting the money. But at this point, the team has, pretty much played the same, if not better, soccer since he's left. He hasn't been performing poorly on corners now. We've been a little bit better. The Fire have been a little bit better on corners now since he's been gone. I just don't understand the human side of bringing him back.
Right, and even though the form has turned back downward in recent times, Shaqiri's not going to make that any better.
These are defensive issues mostly.
Yeah, Kuipers and Haile Selassie, as we highlighted, have been very good. Yeah. Like, bringing Shaqiri back is not going to help that situation at all. And no, it's largely the issues are on defense. It's in squad construction. It's maybe in coaching. It's not anywhere that Shaqiri is going to magically come back and make things better. Could you maybe try it in this new formation with him as like a pure 10 in a 3-5-2? Maybe, but I don't know. I don't see the point in it. Again, and I'm sure there are constant discussions going on at Fire HQ. I'm sure this is something they are working on a lot to figure out how they solve this problem. The dream is that somebody's willing to take on a salary on a free transfer, because again, until you open a DP spot, you can't fill it with anybody new.
No, if he's willing to do the Suarez when he's with Uruguay role of in friendlies coming on at the 85th minute, that's fine, I guess, because he sells tickets to a point. Honestly, Shaqiri is a global superstar. We tend to forget that. He is, and brings in people every game. So if they want to do that, I could see that happening, but it would have to be discussed beforehand because, again, I don't understand the human side of bringing him back. Once you make that decision while the team's struggling for a friendly, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and the thing that will always, I think, be telling is that, for as much as we in the media and fans and everybody express frustration with Frank Klopas over how there was never change to the tactics, how there was no clear adjustments, the fact that the moment Shaqiri leaves, whole new formation, whole new setup, it's like, again, maybe you can't blame Shaqiri for the form or whatever. It's like, but clearly there was a decision being made that there's a way this team and these coaches wanted to play that they felt they could not do with Shaqiri on the field. That became evident immediately. And also on the captaincy side, Fabian Herbers, Cal Acosta, Rafa Chios.
Gaston Jimenez,
got it, the armband for a minute there. Whoever, again, just, Shaqiri getting the armband at the start of the season felt like an attempt to maybe get a little more out of him. It didn't work. That's okay to admit that it didn't work. You tried. Also, quickly on the Gaston Jimenez note, our friend of the show, Alex Calabrese, reporting that the Fire have not received any offers. So despite all that Argentine media squawking about him going to Boca Juniors, maybe back to Vélez, who knows, the Fire have not received a concrete offer. So the rumors that they had turned down an offer are thus null and void, because you can't turn down an offer you haven't gotten.
I've never seen a player in my time on the beat as frustrated in a post-match press conference as Gaston Jimenez was after the earthquake. Understandably so. Everybody understood the moment they screwed up.
But the question had to be asked, and he was just like, man, I don't want to talk about this.
I was like, how did that happen? And of course, had to be traded. He was not thrilled.
And basically, it's like, we're not going to do a referendum on South American football media in a Gaston Jimenez post-game press conversation.
No, he's been great. He was just like the captain's armband. He had to do it after a loss. That's who has to do it. And he gave good quotes, all of it, but you could just tell he was over it.
The combination of losing to that team, also while you're probably getting berated by people from back home about what appears to be a total nonsense story.
Yeah, exactly. No, again, we talk about the human side of this. He's got a little kid. It's so exhausting. And there were rumors about him somehow being included in Paraguay's team at the Olympics. I saw one place. It's been a weird month.
It's been a weird, and hey, it's been a good time to remember. Just because a lot of people on the internet say a soccer thing is going to happen, Jurgen Klopp, just because people are talking about something on Twitter doesn't make it real. Hopefully what will be real, though, is some improved results for the Fire in their coming matches, despite the very tough schedule. And then, if nothing else, they can just forget MLS exists kind of for a few weeks when Leagues Cup comes around at the end of the month. That is going to do it, though, for this episode of CHGO Fire. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Joe Chatz, thank you, as always, for talking through sometimes the ups, but often the downs. At least the downs, as I said earlier, losing
here to be a downer.
Yeah, losing to the worst team in the league who hasn't won in 2 months. That's a new one. So at least we have something unique to talk about, even if it wasn't particularly positive. Your input, always appreciated, Joe, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, Joey, for
Yeah, speaking
helping
of
us.
Joey behind the scenes, shout out to you. We appreciate that.
Great stuff, fellas.
Yep, and great stuff from you on that board, on the keyboard, on the monitor back there. Much appreciated. We will see you again here in 2 weeks' time for another double podcast day, Fire and Red Stars. That's sure to probably be an Olympic-heavy episode. Maybe we could do some fun stuff with that, so make sure you tune back in a couple weeks' time. But for now, I'm Alex Campbell. This has been CHGO Fire, and I'll see you next time.